Welcome here to Sports Talk Live Buffalo Plus here on WGRZ Plus. I'm Sports Director John Scott, joined by the Hall of Famer, our great analyst Vic Carucci here, live outside Highmark Stadium. We're about 45 minutes away from kickoff on Thursday Night Football between the Bills and the Miami Dolphins. And it doesn't matter if it's prime time, 1 o'clock, daylight, nighttime, whatever. Recently, this has been a very, very one-sided rivalry, and the Bills have been dominating.
And it's kind of remarkable that you have that kind of dominance, even if you know, okay, one team is clearly better, has better players, more consistency, continuity on the coaching staff. This is the NFL, and generally speaking, it's closer than what has been represented in this series.
It honestly is an ironic turn of events. It's basically Josh Allen dominating the Miami Dolphins as Tom Brady dominated, well, certainly the Bills and many other divisional opponents during their great run. Allen 13-2, 5 AFC Offensive Player of the Week honors in his career against Miami. Injuries have been a big talking point heading into this one. Let's take a look at the Bills' inactive list for this one. Good news, Vic. All three guys that were listed as questionable entering tonight: Taron Johnson, Cam Lewis, Shaq Thompson, all are active for this one. Curtis Samuel, once again, a healthy inactive there. We already knew about Ed Oliver missing, and Matt Milano in particular as well. That injury, a pec popping up in the Sunday Jets win. This has been the story of his career. We talked about it on Sports Talk Live on Monday, and it's just a really unfortunate thing. What sort of an impact do you think it's going to be tonight in particular with Milano on the mend?
Yeah, I don't know how major an impact it'll be. I mean, you think of Devon Achane, for instance, as being maybe one of the few Dolphin players who could do some damage, because as a running back and catching passes, that's something Milano can defend pretty well. Not having him in there, okay, let's just put a little half of a question mark on that. I'm more concerned about the long term here, John, and the history of Matt not being able to stay healthy. And once again, we are only 2 games into the season, and the questions linger about, okay, how much are in terms of total games or snaps, are we going to see Matt Milano on the field?
Sean McDermott saying just a few days ago that the medical staff's still waiting to kind of let the injury settle before making a more definitive prognosis on how long Milano could be out. Dorian Williams sliding into the starting position there, a position he was in 11 times last year because of another Milano injury. Let's slide into the matchup here. The Dolphins' offense, something that just years ago, putting up 70 points in a game, like McDaniel is a genius and a guru. They certainly do not look like it in the early going here through 2 games this season. And Tua Tagovailoa is always a lightning rod with this sort of a conversation, and he's not helping the case for some of the naysayers early on.
Not at all. Look, Dolphin fans have been waiting for Tua to be the answer. This was a team that lost games for the sake of getting a chance to get Tua Tagovailoa to be the answer, and it just isn't there, John. And I've given up. I mean, we follow the Bills closely, but you go around the league and you look at this story, and in some ways it's a sad story because of all the expectation and that he hasn't delivered. And I'm not seeing anything, including what might happen tonight. I'm not seeing anything that encourages me or should encourage any Dolphin fans that this guy's going to be the answer.
The book on Tua has been, if you can get him off of his first read, it's kind of chaos and he's swimming upstream and can't really handle it after that. The number that really stands out to me through 2 games for him, he's been pressured 15 times. That's 23% of the time he's dropping back. 1 scramble. We know what Josh Allen can do. We know the difference makers. When you talk to even Bills defensive linemen when going from Lamar Jackson to Justin Fields, they said, hey, this is kind of the way of the NFL. Tua is not the way of the NFL now at the quarterback position. No, and when you look at this matchup, we talked about the dominance that the Bills have had. 6 straight wins and 9 straight here at Highmark Stadium. But it's these numbers that jump out at me in the Josh Allen-Tua Tagovailoa matchup. 23 touchdown passes to 5 interceptions for Josh in games against the Dolphins. Tua against the Bills, 9 touchdown passes, 10 interceptions. Yeah, it looks like a really tough road ahead here. We'll get into another reason that things have been tough for Tua as well. Let's go to the running game, though, because The most explosive guy, or one of, is Devon Achane here because of the multi-facets that he can hurt you. He only has 85 yards on the ground here, but he leads Miami in targets with 14, receptions with 11, and touchdowns with 2, 112 receiving yards.
Yeah.
He's been more of a factor as a receiver, and he's a good pass catcher. That's also because Tua's dinking and dunking it off to him.
He is, and what really jumps out at me too is you go back to 2024, and Devon Achane leads the NFL in terms of running backs catching passes, passing yards, 704 yards. That's significant, and but it may not necessarily be the kind of positive note when you see, leads the league, and a lot of dump off, a lot of inability to take advantage of what this Dolphin team was supposedly built to do. Stretch deep, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle beat you deep. And here's Achane, who's fast, but you're getting a lot of underneath passes.
As a fantasy owner, Devon Achane is a good fantasy guy. I don't know what he's really doing long-term, though, with this Dolphins offense. You mentioned Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. Waddle was questionable coming into this. He is going to play.
Right.
10 catches, 149 yards on 13 targets for Tyreek Hill, 9 for 98 and a touchdown on 11 targets for Jalen Waddle. Nobody else on this entire team outside of Achane has more than 3 receptions. Once again, this offense completely funneling through the 2 wide receivers.
Yeah, and look, if you're trying to see where this could be a game or where the Dolphins could challenge, it's there. It's really the only hope is if some way, shape, or form Tua Tagovailoa is able to hit those 2 fast and deep game-breaking type targets, can be, against this Bills secondary that we know has had questions. And what is the identity of the secondary? In the Baltimore game, a disaster, especially at safety, and especially Cole Bishop. And then against the Jets, redemption. And you heard Sean McDermott praise the play of both Taylor Rapp and Bishop. We'll see tonight if, in fact, that's the case. But, Tua's got to have some time to do that. We don't know if that's going to be the case.
Second game, Tre'Davious White will be back out there after missing the early portion of the season with an injury. I put a lot of question there as well because it's been a great story. You've seen flashes from Tre'Davious through training camp, OTAs, things like that. But I think as things went on, you saw more warts of someone who's had 2 major injuries and is 30-plus years old. They can test him, and I think it would be in their best interest to do so. And it's not like, again, as we've talked about the safety position, you have as much confidence in the world that should Tre'Davious get beat, that Taylor Rapp or Cole Bishop will be there to save the day.
Yeah, and this is what we have to find out. Again, was the Baltimore game a bit of an anomaly, or was it a true indication of the state of the secondary? And I'm leaning, somewhere in between. I don't know if it's always going to be that bad because, by the way, they're not always going to face Lamar Jackson.
Right.
And, the quarterback since, Justin Fields, we saw what happened there, not much. And then, of course, now it's Tua Tagovailoa, not expecting to see much. So as the season plays out, we'll see how well Tre'Davious White, A, can hold up physically, but B, hold up just as a performer.
Now, to hit some deep shots or get the passing game going or the offense going, you have to have time. And this Miami offensive line had questions coming into the season. 2 of their starters are out in Austin Jackson and James Daniels. They're both on injured reserve already. They're banged up. The guys that are in there are young and inexperienced, and they're not doing Tua, Devon Achane, Mike McDaniel, any of these guys any favors by helping out and being stout up front.
No, again, when you're looking for reasons why a team is 0-2 and why it seems hopeless and hapless for the rest of the season, you can invariably go to the offensive line, or to both sides of the line, but especially the offensive line. And what is the difference? Well, okay, Josh Allen, immensely talented, MVP, but he's got an offensive line that does a great job of keeping him upright.
Yeah, I think battle of the trenches is where you often hear Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane go to when they talk about success overall. This game in particular, you're going to see what it's like for a Bills offensive line and Bills defensive line to be superior in their one-on-one matchups. Let's go over to the defense because one bright spot on the defense is the defensive front. At least you got some names, and Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips, and on the list goes Chop Robinson, things like that. But overall, Vic, if you're going to look at a place to put your finger as to why the Dolphins are 0-2 and things don't look like they're going to get any better, it's that side of the ball.
There's no question. And look, it manifested itself in that first game against the Colts. I mean, they put Daniel Jones in Canton with that, with that game. Daniel Jones looked really good, and I want to give Daniel Jones and the Colts some credit, but that Dolphin defense had a lot to do with it. And then the following week against the Patriots, a more competitive game for Miami, but the defense ultimately is letting them down. And then at the end of the game, it was the O-line, and you had the game end with Tua Tagovailoa getting sacked 2 plays in a row.
All right, I'm going to give you some numbers. They're 26th in the NFL in total yards allowed, 375.5, 25th against the run, 24th against the pass, allowing nearly 52% of third downs. That's tied for second worst in the NFL.
Yeah.
They're allowing over 22 first downs through 2 games, 29th, and they're allowing 33 points a game, second worst in the NFL. I mean, it's bad. You can't even give any part of the numbers to be good.
And let's add more bad to the bad. It's only the second time in history have allowed 30-plus points in each of their first 2 games. This once, I can remember when this was a proud franchise. I mean, the Dan Marino years, but I can go all the way back to, remember that undefeated, that perfect team of 72. I feel for Dolphin fans. They have nothing like that anymore.
There are some familiar faces on the other side of the ball. Tyrell Dodson is the starting linebacker, actually enters week 3, tied for 3rd in tackles in all of the NFL because of injuries at cornerback. Rasul Douglas signing there late in this offseason. He's going to get the start and go up against some of his former teammates. All right, that's a look out. That is a look at this matchup from our perspective. But we always like to get some insight from someone closer to the opponent. Vic, catching up with Joe Rose, the Dolphins radio analyst. We'll have that conversation next on Sports Talk Live Plus. Welcome back here to Sports Talk Live Plus on WGRZ Plus. John Scott, Vic Carucci outside Highmark Stadium. Only about 30 minutes now until kickoff between the Bills and the Dolphins on Thursday Night Football. As you just heard, Vic and I giving our thoughts on the matchup that lies ahead, but each and every show we like to go to the other side and get some really good insight from someone closer to the opponent.
Yeah, so Joe Rose, a former tight end for the Dolphins and a member and analyst of their radio broadcast team, their Dolphin Network radio team, and does an enthusiastic, great job. So I had a chance to sit down with him and ask him some pretty tough questions about the state of this Dolphin team.
How desperate are the Dolphins? And if they are desperate, to what extent does that possibly help them in a game like this?
Well, they're desperate for a win. Vic, nobody thought they were going to start 0-2. They looked at their schedule before the season started. Daniel Jones starting with the Colts. I think they felt pretty good about those matchups, especially with all of Tua's weapons coming back. And then at home, your home opener last week against New England, I know the Dolphins felt good about their chances in that game. So it's been a disappointment. You hear it from the fan base. This is a pretty desperate game, and they know this could really make up those 2 games they lost if they can beat the big dogs right now. Maybe the big dogs in the AFC, let alone we know in the AFC East.
And as a former player, when you go into situations like that, not that you often did, but the motivation that it provides, can that bring out something that maybe whatever was lacking in the first couple of games, can that come into play in a game like this?
I think the focus has to be there. The slow starts. I mean, you couldn't have a slow start. They've had a slow start. They're down 2 scores, 2 touchdowns at home last week. They're down a bunch against the Colts, who scored on every possession. They know how important it is to get off to a good start. There's going to be some urgency. I got a feeling he's going to open up the playbook and really try to attack some things. And they know they need the big plays back in this game. But whatever it is, it's Thursday night. It's on national TV. There's a lot of people right now in the hot seat. And I think the team knows with that. I think they really like Mike a lot. I do. I think the players like playing for him. But they got to play a hell of a lot better than they have in the first 2 games.
What are the problems that you see, or the biggest ones, I guess, in this 0-2 start?
They got to get confidence on both sides of the football. They got a lot of young guys playing. I believe 6 drafted rookies played a lot of football last week. That's the most I can ever remember with this team. So they're going to be growing pains with those guys. And I mean, they're playing a lot of snaps. But they got to get more out of the frontline guys. And now they have another problem, something the Buffalo Bills aren't familiar with, and that is an offensive line that's banged up. Right guard and right tackle are out. And it got attacked a little bit last week against the Patriots. They went after it pretty good. And with that means more pressure on Tua. And with that, it's just not – he threw for 300 yards, but at the end of the game, they finished the game on a sack on 3rd and 4th down to end the game in pretty good field position. With a touchdown, they win that game. So they got to clean some things up. They know it. They got to play better overall. They got to play smarter. And Vic, the thing I worry about is confidence. You keep losing. You lose at home in your opener to an AFC East opponent. You lose to the Colts, and I know a lot of people are afraid, oh boy, now we're playing the Buffalo Bills, who always seem to play well. Josh Allen's 13-2 against the Miami Dolphins. I know every guy in the Miami Dolphins knows that record that Josh has against us.
And in terms of that attacking style, like you said, they just got to get after it to have a chance. When you think about Buffalo right now, it didn't show up in the Jets game, but you saw that Baltimore game, the vulnerability on the back end, particularly at safety. And there are other defensive injuries that are creeping up as well with this team. So could there be, just given the speed that the Dolphins have at receiver, that same formula, that they could have success that way?
Well, they believe it. Last week is the best game, Vic. The big three, we call them, Achane, Waddle, and Hill, have had, and two of the fastest three players in the National Football League. I think most people believe Achane's the fastest running back. He was a 100-meter guy at Texas A&M, and Tyreek Hill, after minicamp, ran a pair of 10-100 meters in track meets in California and Texas. It's important to get those guys the ball, and we need the big plays back. When this team has been its best, I know we talk about running the ball. Yes, you got to run it. We talk about moving the chains, but this thing, Mike went out and it's still one of the fastest teams in football. They need big plays like they got a lot, not enough to win last week, but they got a lot of big plays from those big three guys.
Our thanks to Joe Rose from the Dolphins Radio Network. John, what stands out to me, said a lot of interesting things, but when he referenced the hot seat and how hot those are and increasing in heat, just can see it from as close as he is on Mike McDaniel, or under Mike McDaniel, the head coach, and under Chris Grier, the general manager.
It's really amazing that Grier still has his job, to be honest with you. I think he's the longest tenured general manager to never even win a playoff game. He's at a decade at this point in time. And McDaniel, the writing I think was on the wall last year, his inability to adjust when Tua Tagovailoa is not the quarterback and adjust in general here. He hasn't been given the greatest players, especially on the defensive side of things, helping the offensive line. It would not surprise me, although my friend who's a Dolphins fan said, what is the point if you fired him if they get blown out tonight? But it wouldn't surprise me.
It wouldn't surprise me either. And honestly, the thing that did surprise me that Joe Rose said in our conversation was that he thinks the players like Mike McDaniel, and now liking him and playing for him or playing for his job could be two different things, because I think when you get into a situation of being in an 0-2 hole like this, everybody's agenda is everybody's own agenda versus, okay, let's save the head coach.
And I think you'll see whatever side those players are on here tonight. All right, we know half of the AFC East is on display this evening. Vic and I are going to get into the rest of the division and what they got in store this weekend coming up. Plus, backup quarterbacks galore around the NFL just as we are entering Week 3. A discussion on injuries to prominent guys. That's next here on Sports Talk Live Plus.
Now, back to Sports Talk Live Buffalo, sponsored by Solino Law.
Welcome back here to Sports Talk Live Plus here on WGRZ Plus. I forgot to mention, you can't see it, and I'm not going to make Jackson show you. Vic and I, coincidentally, are wearing the exact same shoes tonight, so clearly we are in sync, and we're only 2 weeks into this show, 3 weeks into the regular season
bad.
here.
I forgot the tie, but okay, we'll figure it out.
Well, different job titles here for this one here. Bills and Dolphins, obviously half of the AFC East. They're getting underway here in about 20 minutes or so behind us inside Highmark Stadium. The rest of the division, let's take a look at what they have on tap here this weekend. And New England is hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers, a matchup of two 1-1 teams. Interesting place for both to be in here, but in particular, the Patriots.
Yeah, it's sounding by now almost like a cliche from the offseason, from the moment Mike Vrabel was hired, that, okay, this means the Patriots are going to get better. And I do have confidence that Mike Vrabel will provide the leadership that they need. How soon that happens, we'll see. That game against Miami, I mean, they were in a position to lose that to, I think, a worse team. We'll see how long it takes for New England to kind of get on track and maybe be the only challenger in the AFC East, but I use that word challenger very loosely.
Steelers as well. I mean, this is like maybe a 7-seed wild card type early sort of implications there. Not the case for this other one. Jets are 0-2. Bucks, that's where they're traveling to, are 2-0. Baker Mayfield and company there. The Jets could get buried here, and it's only week 3.
Right. You look at this, and they go 0-3, and the whole Aaron Glenn impact and changing culture and all of that, which I think is halfway out the window, goes all the way out the window. And, of course, Justin Fields suffers the concussion against the Bills. Tyrod Taylor takes over at quarterback. I know we're going to talk about quarterbacks, but that, too, is part of a discussion where are the Jets going to be sinking fast like the Dolphins?
And I don't think anyone anticipated the Jets to be true contenders. Maybe you talk about Pittsburgh. Maybe they kind of gave us a bit of fool's gold week 1 to make us think, oh, then the Bills. Like, I think they might do to a lot of teams this season, kind of bringing them back to earth. You mentioned Justin Fields knocked out of the Bills game. Tyrod Taylor getting the start this week for the Jets. That's just one of a handful of backups that are likely, if not certainly, going to be thrust into action. Obviously, Joe Burrow out. You got Jaden Daniels up in the air. Mac Jones is already starting games for Brock Purdy.
J.J. McCarthy.
J.J. McCarthy is out with Carson Wentz. An interesting place for, 20% of the league to be in this early.
Yeah, it's not a new thing. It was a few years ago when this happened, or maybe more than a few, but it's happened, where starters suffered a rash of injuries. It's just more noticeable when it's starting quarterbacks, and it's never good for the league when these frontline players aren't on the field.
Yeah, it also puts some of these interesting teams, like Cincinnati's 2-0, and now you're looking at 3 months or so with Jake Browning.
Yeah, and that could be their undoing, along with some other issues. But I can't see the Bengals being a challenger or a contender without Joe Burrow.
All right. About 15 minutes or so from now, Bills, Dolphins, Thursday night football inside Highmark Stadium here. We've kind of laid everything out for you. A quick, 5 seconds, your prediction for tonight.
Yeah, prediction is Bills win handily, and that's about it.
Yeah, I'm right there too. We've told you everything else about the why. That's kind of the way we're looking. Well, I'd like to thank you here for Sports Talk Live Plus here on WGRZ Plus. Of course, we'll be here every Thursday night, 7:30, looking up to the Bills' next opponent. With Vic Carucci, I'm John Scott. We'll see you next week.